Tales of Eternia, the animation. Well, it certainly exists. First aired in January 2001, this was the first piece of animated Tales content outside of the games, and well, it certainly shows. I'll be honest and say I went into it expecting it to be a 13 episode recap of the game's plot, and I would have been more than happy with that, but what we actually got was a completely separate story, taking place in a new area with new characters alongside the four main party members, all taking place after the party has gathered the Inferior and Greater Kremls, but before they made their way to Celestia. It feels kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon sequel to a Disney film, like when Emperor Kuzco went to school for some reason. Something with familiar characters for a bit of fun, but could be completely ignored without affecting the main narrative. I'll be clear from the get-go, I did not really enjoy this. Certain episodes I thought were fun, and it was nice to get to see more of Meredy and the other ones, but I just think there were too many problems for me to fully enjoy it. I'll try not to be too negative, so let's take a look at each episode in turn and talk about my thoughts and feelings. Please be warned, there will be spoilers throughout for the whole show and about half of the game, but if you care about that, you could just go watch the anime first. I mean, it's all on YouTube. There's no dub since it never made it outside of Japan, but that's fine, you can read the subtitles, it's all good. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 1 opens with the same intro every episode will have, a stone carving detailing the ancient war between Inferior and Celestia, before a really weird and ugly looking transition to the party. Max and Shat won't be showing up here, I'm afraid. They heard what was going to happen and they left while the going was good. The series opening plays here, and I have to say, I actually really like it. It matches the vibes that the game's opening had, and the song's pretty good. I love the scenes with the original characters foreshadowing their importance, although I don't know why we needed that shot of Farah in the darkness with no clothes on. I know it's a visual symbol of her innocence and naivete and all that, but it just seems a little out of place for me. The episode title cards are kind of a nice reflection of the era this was made as well. It just gives me 2001 vibes. Farah has a dream that gives a very quick flashback to previous events, and one detail I really like is that any game character shown has their face completely blacked out. It makes the memories feel slightly muddled, like the characters aren't seeing and remembering every single detail since it's a dream. It's really cool, I think. Although I don't know why Farah is seeing Ras with these other two guys since he hasn't actually betrayed the party yet. We then get a very succinct explanation of the Grand Fall in literal seconds before seeing the evil Grand Council villains of the series. Don't plan on finding out anything about them anytime soon though, we need to be patient here. Our first original character is watching the party from behind some bushes because she obviously wants to kill Kiel Zabil, which I would be more than happy to let her do, before Farah tries to kick Reed off a cliff for eating her rations. From this stage it's obvious the anime has a much more comedic tone than the game. Not that the game was never funny, but this show is jokes for about 60% of the runtime. Reed comes across our next original character Do Not Steal while collecting food. This is Kalina, a bard, travelling the world to find inspiration for her music, although I've only ever actually seen her in 2 locations. She's also not great at singing, or playing the lute. It was also during this scene that I realised that this show might be slightly hornier than I was expecting. Kalina herself is a fine character, she's a good bit of comedy relief for now. Also she's blonde in this episode for some reason, that's not true for most of the rest of them. Thankfully Farah has wandered into evil lobster territory, so we can get a fight scene in this episode. This fight's pretty good actually, fluid animation but more blood than I expected, and I like that the characters still announce their attack names while they're doing them. Unfortunately, I don't know the translations of the attacks, but hey, they still look cool. We also get the stock footage summoning of the Greater Kremls. Undini's body is still tea, but she's unfortunately useless against water monsters, which is a nice detail actually. Seems the pair can't use any arts without summoning the Kremls first though, which is fine, just different. And I still hate Sylph. Unfortunately, the episode ends with Morone, our next original character and my favourite one, destroying the party with the Demon Fang. The ending theme is fine, it's just lots of shots of Farah looking sad and looking at Reed. The song is good, although it's called I'd Love For You To Touch Me, which is... that's a little much. Anyway, a pretty good first episode, starting strong. Episode 2. Morone has kidnapped Reed on her really cool wyvern dragon thing Barossa, but not for bounty purposes. She needs a business partner in killing monsters, and this was the best way she could think of to get him to cooperate. Thankfully she dropped a scroll, and they don't use paper on Celestia anymore, so Meredy gets Farah to read it. This brings the party to the new original location, Verkaniu, an island separated from the rest of Inferia that has a completely self-dependent society, so it doesn't need to trade with the rest of the world, so there are few boats and it can be ignored for the purposes of the game's plot. Honestly, at this stage, I sort of realised what a later plot point was going to be, since in the game, the Mir of Rasheen's makes a big deal about Meredy's skin tone. And there's an entire island here full of people who have the same or similar tone to her. But I thought this was just anime original stuff, so I suppressed that thought slightly. Anyway, it all gets really horny now, with a literal burr arse shot of Morone in the shower. I did start to tune out slightly at this stage and was worried for the rest of the series, and unfortunately, this was not the end of that. There's another shot of Morone's boobs later in the episode, but she's crying this time. She's not even in the shower this time, this is just nudity for nudity's sake. This is really making me doubt the symbolism of that one Farah shot in the opening. We also get introduced to Platia and Minima, two new characters that were in the opening, so they must be relevant. Although introduced might be pushing it a bit here, they don't really do anything apart from exist in this episode. Minima is selling things at least, and this will be her singular personality trait for quite a while. Farah jumps into fighting the giant sea monster without thinking here, which is consistent with her game personality, which is great, reminiscent of her scenes just before meeting Ras. Also, very excitingly, we get an aerial board mention. It's just him flying about without a green vortex sadly, but at least it's more than the 5 seconds it's used in the game. The monster is slain and Morone gives Reed back to the party, but not before she plays on Farah's insecurity for a bit. Also, the hotel they stay at is called Hotel Uranus, which is cool since quite a lot of the names in Eternia are based on astronomical terms and names related to it. Overall, this episode was fine. I'd rather Morone put some clothes on. Episode 3. Farah is desperate to get off this island, which is so fair because the two worlds are literally being pulled together as we speak, and nobody else is listening to her. It's like you don't know we're on a quest to save the entire world or something. Kalina is also here somehow, but she lives there, so it's all good. After a shopping montage, Meredy falls flat on her face attempting to dance, becomes friends with Kalina and immediately gives up on saving the world. Farah has a trauma dream and blows up on the others with good reason, although she does tell Kalina she's useless, annoying, has no friends or future and should go away, which is a bit much. Kalina decides to live a hermit's life in the mountains right as a hurricane starts, so the party goes to save her since this is kind of Farah's fault. The people try to stop Farah from leaving, although Reed takes over and they leave anyway, so what was the big issue? He was slightly more prepared? I know Farah is acting on instinct and all that, but why did nobody try to stop him? Anyway, Kalina almost dies, but she's saved at the last moment. Unfortunately, the greater criminals lose their powers somehow, and Reed and Farah die crossing the bridge. Until Morone saves them, although the island is still destroyed, and this is why we need to stop global warming. I don't like that the rest of the party gets to relax after all that, since they lazed about when Farah was doing the right thing. Anyway, this episode was fine, I was just really annoyed at everyone except Farah the entire time. Episode 4. Jesus Christ, episode 4 was just an excuse to put all the girls in swimsuits. I'm going to be so real. I watched this one at 2 times speed, it was just annoying me so much. I guess Farah and Morone's relationship improved a little, and Meredy swimming the dog paddle and winning was a little funny, but Jesus Christ, is it all really necessary? Like once or twice, yeah sure, whatever, but multiple times? In multiple episodes? Let's move on, I hated this one. Episode 5. The party decide to build their own boat to leave the island since the hurricane destroyed the rest of them, only to discover that the price of wood has skyrocketed because of the woke mind virus, so Meredy and Kalina get jobs that they are bad at to raise money. There's a sex joke that I really did not enjoy in the middle here, and eventually they work for the club where we are all fam, where the owner is evil, and Reed is working for him as a bodyguard. Although I would have thought Morone explaining the situation would have made Reed stop fighting since he literally says he already got paid, but I guess not. Anyway, the club gets submerged by Maelstrom and then they buy the boatwood. Average episode. Episode 6. The boat sinks. Farah and the girls then proceed to spend the rest of the episode trying to have a bath since she stinks of ocean water, and there's a part where Minima's bath towel falls off and Keel gets a nosebleed. Not funny, didn't laugh, you were going to lose subscriber. They go to a hot spring and there's a mention of both Meredy and Moroni not being able to handle the heat, which I didn't think much of at the time, but it actually makes sense later. Also, Farah tells Moroni that Meredy is a Celestian and she barely cares, which is also explained later, to be fair. Meanwhile, Reed and Keel are actually investigating the strange ruins and the Melnix coins they found, thank God. Plot advancement, I've been waiting for this day. They go into a long tunnel where they fight a fire monster and kill it by bringing the water above the tunnel in, which just so happens to be where the girls' hot spring is. This episode was fine, would have been better without all the naked jokes. Episode 7, oh we're halfway through, thank God. This episode is different as it stars the Dark Wings, a trio who feature throughout the Tales series, and who were apparently in the Eternia game but I didn't manage to find them. They're comic relief characters who think they're incredible, while being incredibly dumb, although I have to admit I do find their style of comedy funny. I did laugh at the web address gag here, although maybe it was laid on a little thick even for me at times. While the episode is funny for about 30 seconds, things actually happen this time. The Darkwings plus Reed find a cage full of Celestian monsters trapped in the tunnels, accidentally free them, but defeat them before they completely destroy the town. And the presence of Celestian monsters on Inferior is surprising to the group, thank God, although most of them probably won't think on this for more than 15 milliseconds. Also, the Darkwings got eaten by sharks off screen. Good episode actually, I enjoyed it for the comedy and the plot progression. Episode 8. The episode starts out with a flashback of Meredy and Chazelle, the same one from the game, as Meredy's Alara flashes. There's similar flashes from all the other houses, but I'm sure that's nothing. Meanwhile, the 3 cult members activate their contraption, meaning the plot is actually going to do something. It's been 4 hours, thank God. No more filler type content, yes please. I usually don't have an issue with filler, but when it's this much and so uninteresting, I wish there was a lot less of it here. Keel then makes Meredy cry by being racist and I hate him. Reed helps her, thank God, but Keel literally makes no attempt to make her feel better. I actually despise this man. Why would Meredy ever get with him? Jesus Christ. Anyway, the rest of the episode is about the Kreml Dust Festival, when the Kremls make lights rise from the ocean, just like Meredy's flashback to her time with Chazelle. There's also the matter of women confessing their feelings to their loved ones, which leads to Farah see Platia ask Reed to the beach, and Moroni see Minima ask him to the same place. The traditional garb for the festival makes everyone look like they're doing a lip sync in the finale of Drag Race. As the festival begins in earnest, Kalina gets seemingly possessed by the ocean lights, while Minima and Platina seem remorseful of what they're doing, in probably the only case in this series where the end of an episode actually made me want to watch the next one right away. Pretty good episode. Things are looking up. Finally. Episode 9. Fun fact, the video that I was watching had horrible audio desync, and I literally didn't care enough to find a new version, so that's sort of where my expectations were for the series at this point. Which is annoying, since this episode was actually pretty good. Reed is walked across a random bridge by Platia and Minima, and Minima trips over a loose plank, Platia goes to catch her, and Reed catches them both. What the hell was all that about? Why is every woman on Earth just insanely attracted to Reed? In a twist that I somehow did not see coming, Platia and Minima were 2 of the evil Nereid cult leaders we've been seeing in the shadows. Why I didn't suspect them to be 2 out of the 5 major unique characters here, I have no idea. Anyway, they give up immediately when they realise Reed would forgive literally anyone on Earth for anything, even with a stab wound, which spurs their leader into going to Kalina, who has been dancing on the ocean's surface this entire time, by the way, like some sort of singing Jesus character. The leader is also her mother, which would make her the Virgin Mary? Anyway, religious parallels aside, the leader of the cult is Exia, the leader of the island, which in hindsight, yeah, obviously it is, and turns out the vast majority of the island's inhabitants are descendants of Celestians, and they're all part of a millennia-long revenge plot to destroy the people of Etheria. Which, honestly, do they deserve it a little? Maybe, who can say? But before we can have a moral debate or crisis, Exia kills Platia and Minima before revealing that Kalina actually has the power to absorb Kremls, which she uses to steal the greater Kremls, which in all fairness was foreshadowed in the Hurricane episode. Kalina is then dropped like a sack of spuds, and after firing off a few spells, Exia leaves, ending the episode. I actually did really like this one, since something of substance actually happened here. Let's hope this continues. Episode 10. I low-key thought they'd given Keel a new outfit here, but he'd just taken his cloak off. Boo. Anyway, the villagers are mobilized, and one thing I want to mention here is that I really like that a lot of the villagers shown before either had headbands or bandanas on, or long hair hiding their foreheads to hide their alaras. It's a cool detail that I only fully appreciated on a rewatch, so I guess I'll give them some credit for that. This also explains why Morone didn't seem fazed or bothered about Meridy's identity, so I guess she isn't actually just that laid back. And also, apparently Celestian people don't like heat because of the lack of fire Kremls on Celestia, which explains why both Meredy and Morone couldn't cope with the heat of the hot springs a few episodes ago. The party tries to escape the island, but Morone decides to go back, which means that they're all going back now. Well, just Reed and Farah. Keel and Meredy are just going to sit in a paddle boat with Kalina, I guess. It turns out Morone's father was from Verkaniu, but her mother was Inferian, so the people hated her family. So when they left, they were hunted down and she was the only survivor. Also, I know they're evil and all, but the Nereid cult leaders' outfits are so cool actually. I'm obsessed with their headpieces. Although I'd say they are difficult to animate, which is why anytime a character has to move, they're usually taking them off. Morone tells Exia that she's dedicated to the cause and says she'll kill whoever and whatever for her, before her Alara reveals itself. I'm not sure if this was Exia's doing or if it's a surge of emotions Morone was feeling, but regardless, this leads to a failed assassination attempt since Exia is a ghost or something. So the trio flies out, only to be pursued by flying saucers of all things. I'm glad they have Celestian weapons like the cannons like in the game. Although Reed isn't very shocked by this concept, which I suppose makes sense as he's not the brightest person in this adaptation. Finally, the sister Rey shows up, and Morone decides the only way to win is to sacrifice herself, killing off the best thing about this show. Great episode, although I would rather Morone have survived. Episode 11 is all about Kalina. Thankfully she doesn't remember doing anything, but unfortunately she does have her entire worldview shattered after finding out her mother is evil, in a really cool sequence actually. Meredy and Kalina make their way back to the main island, while the Inferian residents are all led away to captivity and torture, and the evil bar owner from episode 5 is here, and you know what, yeah, you can take him away actually, yeah. The pair are captured and the guards reveal they are under explicit orders to kill anyone claiming to be Kalina, which shatters her worldview yet again. I felt so bad for her this episode. She literally did nothing wrong apart from play the lute badly and not be very smart, but I don't think that deserves all this. Reed saves them and they return to Kalina's childhood home, which is now full of monsters, and also Celestian creatures from the underground tunnels. Also, turns out Kalina used to play in the anti-Exia revolutionaries' weapons stores and just never really thought anything about the swords she was surrounded with. Also, Platia is alive and somehow is a leader of the revolutionaries now, and she arrives to tell Kalina that Exia actually isn't even her mother at all. Her real parents died in a shipwreck, and Exius raised her purely for her Kreml manipulating powers, which I'm sure did wonders for her psyche. After the customary one fight per episode, Kalina's house is ruined, but she doesn't really care, which is nice. Decent episode. I felt really bad the entire time, so objective complete. Episode 12. Morone is alive. We cheered. Insane that she's bandaged at her chest and hips just though. How did her midriff survive damage? Anyway, we find out that Exia wants to greater Kremls in order to power an ancient weapon, which I've seen translated as the Wedge of Destruction or the Chain of Existence, so I guess it's just one of those things that's hard to translate. I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know, I'm afraid. Morone returns to the group, and in my notes for this part I've written lesbians in all caps with 4 S's, so make of that what you will. Minima is also here, but who cares? Exia also decides that humans aren't doing a good enough job, so she summons the spirits of ancient Celestians to do her bidding, and they're actually quite creepy in an early 2000s animated way. The weapon, as it will be known henceforth, rises from the ocean, completely destroying the town and half the residents probably, showing that Exia is actually insane if you hadn't already worked that out. In the biggest plot twist of the series, we find out that the Exia we know isn't actually her real self. Her real body is sleeping inside the machine, still in the form of a young girl from 1000 years ago, while the one ruling the island is the physical manifestation of her negative emotions, in order to keep their hatred for Eternia alive across the centuries, which is great dedication to being petty, honestly. The episode ends with the party trying to get to the weapon, and barely missing getting hit with the giant planet-ending laser ray. This episode was pretty good actually, great setup for the finale, with some creepy moments. Episode 13, the finale. First off, thank God they showed a world map including this island for context, since the weapon is headed for Eternia City. This gives good context as to how long it would take and how concerned I should be. The party fights some spirits in honestly a really well animated section, and I really liked Platia and Minima shouting directions for some reason. Also, why would they know all the corridors from this random entry point? That's insane. Anyway, the original character Do Not Steal squad find Exia's real body, and she's white. This confused me a lot since she very clearly has darker skin in flashbacks and is from Celestia, but I put it down to a very bad animation mistake. This was not correct. Evil Exia absorbs some of the spirits and ends up looking like those ladies from Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and everybody except Meredith gets held up by either spirits or giant snakes, which Exia can summon for some reason. Meredith explains the Grand Fall is a thing, and Exia literally could not care less, getting ready to fire the weapon, which honestly, would we miss Eternia City that much? Anyway, the Celestians wish for power and help, and the resonance from their alars helps to wake Exia's real body, which in turn turns off the weapon. The real Exia speaks through her evil self's body in a really cool sequence, speaking about the emptiness of revenge, which really rounds off all the lessons learned by everyone here, including the entire village, but also Morone here. Not Kalina though, she didn't want revenge, she just wants to play her little songs. After asking everyone present if anybody wanted to kill them, the two Exias reunite and they're young Exia again, but she has dark skin again. I'm not sure that the optics of the personification of her negative emotions being of darker skin and the human left behind having pale skin were intended, but regardless, it's not a good look and I really didn't like that. Anyway, thank God she got her melanin back. Reverse Biden blast, if you will. The party has one last fight with the evil spirits before destroying the weapon forever. The ending then goes over where everyone is after everything. Platia and Minima are running the island now, even though it is literally just rubble and dust, while Morone, Kalina and Exia are travelling the world. There's even a little cameo of the Bridge of Light, meaning the party made it to Celestia, so they're finally doing the things they should have been doing this entire time. And that's it. The finale was good apart from, that part, which brings it down a little, but it was a good ending to the plot laid out before. All in all, I find my feelings make the most sense to me when I split this into two halves. The first half of the show is almost entirely filler, incredibly horny, and honestly I can't say I really enjoyed watching most of it. The second half actually has a plot, which I actually did enjoy, and to be fair, there were some references and foreshadowing moments from the first half after knowing the plot. Although I never would recommend a second watch of the series, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, and it was nice to see the main party again. I just really do wish it was simply an animated retelling of the game's plot, like future animations would be. This was their first animation project, to be fair to them, but from what I've seen, they will learn from this and improve in the future. But yeah, please, less horny next time and more plot and character please. Although the character development we got was pretty good, although we got very little of it. I really enjoyed Morone and Kalina's development, although I can't say the same for Platia and Minima, although maybe I was just really annoyed at the entire thing by that stage. Exia is a fun villain for the 10 minutes she gets to be villainous, but she's really a nothing character before that point, except when she takes her clothes off several times I guess. Overall, I'm not sure I can really recommend this one. I would say if you're a really big fan of Eternia, maybe check it out, but even then, it shares little DNA with the game for half the runtime beyond the main party and the fact that Inferior and Celestia are concepts that exist. But I am glad I took the time to watch it, but it's safe to say once I finish this video, I will never be thinking about it again. And that's okay. And with that, I've covered every piece of Eternia media that I can. There was an MMO, Tales of Eternia Online, but it's been offline for decades, and there's no way to play any form of it from what I can tell, so we'll be leaving Eternia for now. Next video will be jumping into the future of the series slightly, so look forward to that one. In the meantime, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.